Up-and-Comers of Hollywood, your channel for exclusive insight into the world of rising talent, success stories, and industry insights shaping the future of Hollywood and the entertainment industry. Subscribe to Up-and-Comers of Hollywood's YouTube channel and follow us on our podcast. Let's embark on this journey together. First, let's celebrate the recent success stories of incredible up-and-comers in Hollywood. From breakout performances to industry breakthroughs, these up-and-comers are making waves in the entertainment industry. We'll be discussing their journey to success, the challenges they overcome, and the impact they're making on the industry. Stay tuned as we uncover the inspiring stories of these talented individuals. I am so honored and excited for our next guest, Shannon Baker Davis, an award-winning television and film editor. Her credits include The Photograph, Kindred, Queen Sugar, Impeachment, American Crime Story, Prom Pack, and many other projects for Disney, Marvel, Netflix, and HBO. She is a member of the Academy, ACE, an elected board member of the Motion Pictures Editors Guild. Shannon has degrees from Howard University and the American Film Institute. She now resides in Los Angeles with her husband and children. Shannon Baker Davis, I am so excited that you're here today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. It's an honor. I met Shannon at an event a couple months ago, and she is so down to earth, gracious, and giving.
So much. Thank you.
And we're going to honor you because your IMDb credits are amazing. I want to know all about you. Where did you come from? Tell us about your journey.
I'm a feature film and television editor, and I grew up in Augusta, Georgia. My mom was a nuclear chemist, and my dad was an engineer, and they didn't know anything about Hollywood. They didn't know anything about making movies or anything like that. I don't say they discouraged me, but they didn't know how to encourage that interest. I was always writing commercials in the 8th grade and recording dance videos to Salt and Pepper and just doing lots of stuff that was around television and film. I went to Howard University, HU, studied radio, TV, film. My senior year, our dean, Bill Duke, a famous actor, director, and he knew that I was interested in editing. And he said, have you thought about going to grad school at American Film Institute? And at the time, grad school wasn't anything that I had ever thought I would do because I was always planning to get out of college and get a job and work. I had a job, interned during college. All my summers were spent interning. I had a job when I graduated, which was rare at the time and is still rare. And I worked at a company that did political ads, and it was in Washington, D.C. They did lots of big campaigns all over the country. I learned how to use the equipment. I learned how to use Avid. I learned how to do visual effects on Avid and lots of different techniques that they were using. But I realized that I didn't want to do political ads for the rest of my life. After a year working there, I decided to apply to AFI and got in and went. AFI is like boot camp for filmmakers. A lot of the film schools are that way, but AFI trained us to work in the Hollywood system, to work as professionals in film and television. You edit 6 shorts your first year, 2 shorts your second year. You're doing the hours that editors do, 12 hours a day, sometimes 6 days a week. And you're just exposed to so many different, love that experience. And that brought me out to LA. I hated LA. As soon as I graduated from AFI, I went back to the East Coast and lived in DC for a year, then moved to New York and ended up working in reality television.
So what made you hate Los Angeles?
I think that the expectation of LA is there's so much film and television work, but there weren't many jobs when I came out of AFI. Because I was in grad school, in the editing suites and in the classrooms a lot, I didn't really get a community in LA, and everything is so spread out. And I had always hung on to my community back on the East Coast. I can tell you how I ended up in New York. I moved back to DC because I knew DC, and I had gotten a job on a show called Dream House on HGTV. I was an assistant editor. I watch the shows that I love, watch the credits and see who made those shows. Because I was in reality TV and unscripted, and I loved this show called Celebrity Poker Showdown. I love the way that there was just tons of editing in it. There was tons of packages and cards flying across the screen. I thought, that's so creative. I'd love to work on that. So I wrote a letter, and the woman who received the letter worked at the production company and she said, "Oh my God, your letter was so great." They didn't know I lived in DC. "So are you available to come in for an interview?" And I was like, "Yes, absolutely." I went up and it was for a night assistant editor position. I still had my day job in DC and that job was winding down, but I had overlaps. For 2 weeks, I would work during the day in DC and I would get on the 3:00 train, go up to New York and work from 6 to 2 a.m. and then get on the 3 a.m. train and go back to DC and work that day job. It was really hard, but if I tell them I don't live in New York, they won't give me the job. This was just an opportunity for me to move to New York and have a job when I moved to New York. That was tough. And I was on the train with a lot of different types of people. But I made it work. I made it work for those 2 weeks and then moved to New York.
That is the ultimate hustle. And how old were you?
That was 2004. So I was 23. I ended up having a great career in New York, worked on shows, won Emmys. Kathy Griffin, My Life on the D List was one of my first editing credits, and we won an Emmy. It was a really great career. Towards the 8th year, I have always wanted to work in narrative. That was always the goal. I said, I'm going to move back to LA because most of that work is based in LA. I had my boyfriend at the time, but we had broken up and he moved to LA. I was like, I don't want to move to LA. I don't want to go back there. I guess this is it. And eventually he made me come around to LA's different from when you were here. He had found a community, lots of great friends. So I moved back out and it was different. I will always remember in New York, working in unscripted made me the editor that I am in scripted. I moved back to LA and was like, I'm going to work in scripted and couldn't find a job and needed money. So I ended up working in unscripted for 5 more years out here. The way that I got into scripted or narrative is I got married and we had a baby. I was on maternity leave around the 3-month mark, and 2 of my friends had written a script and got the money together to shoot their feature. We'd always talked about me editing it, and they were like, we're ready to go. Good timing because I'm not in the middle of a job that I had to quit or turn down work because I was already not working. So I cut their feature. That's Carrie, Carlock, and Nick. It was called Armstrong, best experience of my life. This is what I'm supposed to be doing, cutting narrative films, talking about story, character, plot, and climax, figuring all that out, putting the scene cards on the wall and rearranging things, the editing of it. The actual pushing the buttons in the machine is one part of what editors do. That was an indie film, so it was very little money, very short time. When I finished, I went back to cutting reality shows. You've experienced what you love and what fuels you, and I was going back to what was fine before, but in the context, I was like, no, this isn't it. And so I decided by the end of that year, I was going to say no to any reality job and just go full force into trying to get scripted. That was tough. It's hard when you have, and you've experienced this too, when you have a long, successful career that you want to pivot. And it's like saying no to the things that are comfortable and the things you've always done. It's hard. My decision and my husband's decision, because he had to support me while I was not working to find work. I just didn't want to be 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day away from my baby doing something I didn't want to do.
It takes a lot of courage to pivot and get into a place of uncomfortableness. But once you do it, you feel so fulfilled.
Yeah.
And you're more confident.
You're more confident. I still get on a job and say, I don't think I'm good enough for this, or I can't figure this out. They call it imposter syndrome, which I have, but it's always, what's the first step? Do the first step. And what's the next step after that? Do the next step. I have a sense of sequencing of events and clarity of events, and whatever skills you have, you can be applied to any career. If you're great with numbers and you want to do something with numbers, there's so many ways to apply that to any sort of career. Always instinctively listen to what you're good at and what you like to do.
When was it? At what age or sometime in school that you thought about editing?
I always knew I wanted to do film and television because I was a latchkey kid. Like, we watched TV a lot. I mean, we didn't have as many channels as they have now, but we watched TV a lot. And it wasn't until maybe my senior year of college that I realized the editing part was what I loved most. I loved that when you're done with your job, you have something tangible. You have something that you can show people, that you can watch yourself and evaluate. Cinematographers and directors don't necessarily have that. They have it because they're going through the process. But when they direct on set, they have no idea what it's all going to look like when it comes together. Hopefully, they thought about how they would like it to look. I love that editing was the culmination of everyone's best effort, everyone's creative vision, and it was in the editor's hands to pull all that together and make it into something that people could actually watch. I would be on set and I'd be like, I can't wait to get to the cutting room and make it into something, because to me, it wasn't tangible on set. Editing was always my favorite part. As you do projects, you realize there's 1,000 different ways something can be put together. I've always been a person who can like something any kind of way. When we used to go shopping for Black Friday after Thanksgiving, growing up, and I have a little sister, I would go shopping and like so many different things. I could see how this could be cute. And I would end up with a lot of stuff, like a lot of things that my mom would buy. And my sister didn't like anything. So she wouldn't end up with things. She was very specific about what she liked. And if it wasn't there, she didn't get it. She didn't want it.
She couldn't see the possibilities.
She couldn't see the possibilities. And then that's just a different way of thinking. She's not a film editor. She's a biologist. She had a specific thing that she was looking for. And if it wasn't there, she kept looking. I apply that to filmmaking because people come with different tastes and preferences. And I like a lot of different things. I can see the horror comedy film you want to make because I like those too. And I also like cerebral drama, and I also like the slapstick comedy. I like a lot of different things, so I can see a filmmaker's vision because I see how I would like that and how people would like that. It makes me more open to different types of choices. I'm always trying to innovate and do something different. Also, being critical. If you like something, you can also be critical of it as opposed to just like throwing it out. So if you don't like it, you're just not going to watch any horror comedy movies. And then you don't have the exposure to the bad ones and the good ones and the ones that are more funny and the ones that are more horror that you just throw it out and your ability to be critical of it wanes. It goes away.
That sounds like why you are such a good editor. You're versatile.
Try to be.
You're proactive and you're creative. No wonder your credits are just phenomenal.
Oh, thank you.
I just love hearing your story. Say that our audience out there are thinking about getting into editing. Now, everyone's doing iMovies and
of course.
social media. What skills does it take to be a top-notch editor in television and film and what you've accomplished?
Writing and comprehension are at the elementary school level, at the middle school level, at the high school level, all of those things. If you are a good writer, a good reader, and you comprehend things, and that takes practice. If you're not an automatic person that can figure things out, then it takes practice. It takes being challenged and figuring out a way to make it better. Writing is a part of that. Reading is a part of that. If you want to work in film and television, you have to be watching film and television. You have to watch everything that's out there because you never know what kind of offer you may get. And you also never know what circle you will end up in. And everyone's saying, oh, don't you love Shogun? And you're like, I've never heard of that. And that makes you feel like you're not a part of the film and television community, that you have no clue the brilliant work that's being done. And even the bad stuff. You should know about it all, watch it all, expose yourself to different types of filmmaking. Have that curiosity. If you don't want to watch things, then maybe find something else that you want to do that you'll do for free, you'll do on the weekends. I'm a very busy person. I have 2 kids, work a full-time job over full-time. And at night, I'm like, oh, you know what? There's a new series that everyone's talking about. Let me see if I can just binge it and get through it just so I can know and have my own opinion of it. So yeah, I think that skill set is, as far as specific to editing, I think being very meticulous is very important, but you have to love being meticulous. If it's a chore to you, then you probably shouldn't pick the editing part of things. And then being organized is a good thing. Organization that fuels your creativity. Being a good listener is good for an editor because you are taking in a lot of opinions about what was shot and performances. You have to take that in and churn it around and have your own opinion of it and be able to speak to that too, because there's many rooms that you'll be in as an editor. Everyone will say, we don't know what to do here. And they turn to you, and you better be able to at least talk about the possibilities, your own opinion of what's been shot, your own opinion on ways to make it better. And you better be able to speak to that. How you practice that and how you get that is by watching tons of stuff and being able to critically talk about it, analyze it, and talk about it, why this worked, why you felt like it didn't work. That comes with practice.
At your level, they want your input.
They definitely want your input.
They just don't want you to be a quiet editor behind.
That's not for me. There are certain situations where everything is rote and everybody knows what they're supposed to do from top down. The writers know, the director knows, the actors know, everyone knows. And you are just filling in the blanks. And that is a perfectly good career and situation because there's still ways to be creative in those situations. But if I am hired, I always speak up for my opinion, input, and creative innovation. So there's tons of different situations.
Do you edit differently for genres?
Of course. Comedy is fast. You want to edit things quickly. You want to get to the joke, let things play out. As long as the timing is good, you want wide shots and movement within the shot. So you want it to not be so cutty, but as long as the timing is good. For drama, a lot of reaction shots and pulling moments out, making them long, intriguing, and dramatic. And you edit different things differently.
Good to know. Now, I'm learning with all of you out there. Yeah. This is wonderful. Like a masterclass. Yeah. You should be on that masterclass. Are you part of a union being an editor?
Yes, I am part of the Motion Picture Editors Guild Local 700, which is underneath IATSE. I'm actually on the board of directors of our guild. It's necessary. That's the way we get our health insurance. That's the way we get our bargaining agreements. Collective bargaining means that everyone is bargaining with the producers together so that you're not out there by yourself and you're not being asked to work for less than a certain amount of money, which is called scale. Scale is the least amount of money that they can pay you. Now, of course, a lot of people negotiate way over that, but at least when you're starting out, this is the least amount of money they can pay you. And then the producers pay into our pension and health. When you work hours under a union contract, you get your health insurance paid for, which is a very big deal, especially as you have families. But what that does is create a baseline for everyone to be taken care of. How do you get into the union? I can speak mostly to LA. New York is a little bit different. New York is part of MPEG, it's a national union. In LA, you work 100 days under your classification. So if you're an assistant editor, you work 100 days on anything non-union, anything where your paycheck you can't work union because you're not in the union yet. But anything where your paycheck will say you're an assistant editor, 100 days. There's a contract services where they will require you to prove that you worked 100 days. You'll be asked to take classes, safety classes, sexual harassment classes, and then you get put on the roster. I always warn people, as soon as you hit your 100 days, get on the roster. They don't care. They're like, you should have gotten your stuff together. Get on that roster so you'll be ready. If something comes along that's union, every job, they go and check. Even though I've been working for 20 years, they'll check, are you on the roster? If you're not on the roster, you can't get the job. People are scrambling. They're like, I'm supposed to start next week, or you can't take the job. Once you get on the roster and working a union job, you have 30 days to join the union and pay your initiation fee. They break it down into payments, payment plans. They know people are, as soon as you get a job, you have no money. They make accommodations for that. That is a key. The roster, if you want to work in LA on the big shows or any shows that are union, get on the roster.
And you have to continuously be on the roster, it sounds like.
You're always on the roster, but you have to continue to take the safety classes.
Oh, I see. Just to keep up on it.
That's every few years you have to take. I just took one.
Now, when did you become union? How old were you?
I was in New York and I got a job that was at a union show, and they don't have the roster in New York. I was hired to work on a union show and I had 30 days to join the union. And so that was easier and it was unscripted. It was like one of the few unscripted union shows.
Okay.
Yeah, that was 2008. So I've been in the union for...
Been doing this for a long time, and you're still moving on up, which is amazing.
I think I'm an up-and-comer too. I'm an up-and-comer because I'm trying to come up, do more and do bigger shows and more responsibilities. This is where I'm supposed to be.
I'm impressed that you've done Disney, Marvel. What does your day look like as an editor?
We editors start the first day of shooting. You might start a little bit before prepping your room. You start the first day of shooting. First day of shooting, they shoot the dailies. And then you have those dailies on the second day. Your second day, you're cutting and you try to stay up to camera. You usually have an assistant editor. Your assistant editor preps the dailies. You cut those scenes and you put them away and you try to stay up to cameras. They shoot on day one. You have those things edited that very next day. That doesn't always happen. The Marvel shows, sometimes scenes come in pieces over the course of 2 weeks. And so you're always just trying to organize your things, your days, and you get through production days, all of the shooting days. On a feature, you have a week or so to pull it all together and make it into something. And then you're showing the director. And then the director will have 10 weeks to get a director's cut to show to the studio. And then the studio watches it and they weigh in and you start previews. This is not just a day. This is like the whole process.
Okay. Yeah. That's okay. No, that's good. That's a good big overview.
This is why it takes so long. It's because people weigh in and the studio weighs in and then you start previews. Everybody else weighs in. All of the people that come and watch the previews and your general public. You're constantly changing and rearranging and trying to find the best way to put the puzzle together.
Like massaging the project?
Not even massaging. Sometimes it's blowing the whole thing up and putting it back together a different way. Okay, so our opening is not working or this character is not well liked. And so that is going through every scene that character is in and finding different takes or cutting lines or changing lines. You can do ADR, which is replacing dialogue. There's just so many ways to put the puzzle together, basically.
Your assistant editor probably goes through all the director notes and everything. So you don't have to go through all that.
You do. There's a script supervisor on set. And what the script supervisor does is mark every take and provide notes. And usually it's the director. You hope that it's the director's notes and they put it in a format where you can see everything. The timing of the shot, you can see any continuity that was there, and that's all recorded. And your assistant editor just puts that in a book, and that is the editor's book. That is our Bible, because that's how we know what happened on set. Besides looking at the actual footage, that's how you know what the director thought. They have to do a thing called circle takes, where it's the director's favorite takes. That's how you know how to put it together. The first assembly is the editor's interpretation of what happened because we were not on set. Usually we're not in the writer's room. We don't know what producer always hated this and what happened. All we have is what was shot and what is in the box. Like on our screen, I read notes for anything the director loved or the producers, if you're on television, loved. I always go with what I see. And that is the first cut. That is the editor's first interpretation of what was shot. And then you're working through it with a director and working with the producers and getting, their intention was this and not this. And they never quite got it on set. So now how do we still make it that in the editing rooms? There's a lot of collaborating on that part. But I personally feel that first assembly is the purest form of what was shot. This is what you have. You're always sticking with the script for sure. No scenes are cut, no lines are cut. Performance-wise, it's the purest form of this is what you got.
I'm fascinated by the behind the scenes of this conversation. You sit for hours, right? If you're working on a project.
A normal day is a 12-hour day. There might be like 4 hours on this day, but we're contracted for 12 hours. Now I've worked 16 hours a day, 18 hours a day. Weekends, I've worked on a project where everything clicks and you're not working as much. But that's another reason I love being in this collaborative thing, because I'm a mom of 2 kids and I like controlling my own schedule. And I like being, what do you need me to do? Now let me figure out how to do it. I like that freedom. You don't often get that in a lot of careers where you're punching a clock or they want to see you in that office from 9 to 5. And why are you getting up from your chair? I like the freedom of you get it done. I don't care how you do it. Part of this is work-life balance too. So when you're working, you are all in, you're working, you're efficient, you're making sure you're not wasting time. And then when you're not working, you're spending time with your family. So it is hard. People say, how do you do it? I'm like, do I do it? I don't know. I don't know that it's really a balance. It's never like a 50-50. At some periods, your work is 80%, family is 20%. And then some periods, it's the opposite.
Exactly.
So.
It just wanes back and forth day to day. Being a mom is a full-time job and adding another full-time job and then being a wife. And I respect your hustle 100%. What are the major challenges you have being an editor? Is there a difference between women and men in this business?
It's mostly men that are editors, which is interesting because first they called them cutters. Back in the day of old Hollywood, were mostly women because they were seamstresses and they were cutting film. They transitioned into cutting film from being seamstresses. Mostly women. Now mostly men are editors. And so that's a challenge, is as a woman being listened to and heard and valued in the room that is mostly male is tough. That's any business, of course. And then getting the job is a challenge. There are so many really talented editors, and you could be chosen for your credits or how you click with the project and with the director or the producer. If you don't have a list of credits, you say, I have great credits, but I don't have necessarily the $100 million film credits. So it becomes tough to say, I am perfect for this show about a girl growing up in Augusta, Georgia. I am the perfect vessel to help tell that story, but my credits do not stand up against somebody that's done $1,500 million films and they get chosen. I think that is a tough thing to push through and to talk to other people that have pushed through in that way. I have a ton of mentors that are all different races, all different genders. And you talk to them about when you were up for this film or when you didn't get it, how do you change your approach? That is a challenge, is getting the job. Because once a group of editors are brought in to interview for the job, everybody can do the job. Everybody that is on that very short list is a good editor. They can all edit. It's who speaks most passionately about the project, who clicks with the project, who actually has an opinion of the project. Like if it's based on a book, who has read the book and has an interpretation of how it should be adapted. So there's a lot. I think that is probably the biggest challenge.
Let's talk about your successes.
I think working on any studio film is a success because it's just so hard. It's rare. There aren't a lot of Black women doing it. I count it a success anytime I work with a group of people or a person, a director, a producer, and we click. Like we just have the same taste level and we have the same sense of humor. Even if we're going on a heavy drama, you're just in the room and you're vibing back and forth. Anytime you find someone that you really like working with, I count that as a success. No matter how it does at the box office or at the awards, it is special. Somebody, they're like, I want to work with them. Whatever they're doing, I want to do that. I've met a few people that are like that, and I think that's a success.
And that's exciting. Do you have any stories of projects that you had that you were surprised about?
I cut this independent feature before I had my second child. My water broke while I was at the Avid. I worked on the editor's cut, and then I had worked with the director for a few weeks, and I was supposed to have a few more days. I was really impressed with the style of that feature. It was called The Obituary Tunde Johnson. It's about a young African boy who's gay, who keeps repeating the same day. His life is on a loop. I was like, oh my God, how do you make this work? This is what I've wanted all my life, to cut something like this that is super cerebral, that it's on the page, but there's going to be a lot of figuring out to do on screen. And I was like, I don't even know. Like, I have a couple friends that I call them and I was like, what is your experience as a gay Black man? I was worried about all the things that could be offensive. I was just so into making that so great. I loved that project. I loved how not only that it's like literally I birthed the project and birthed the baby on it, but just the way it turned out and the style of it and the acting was so good. It was a contest called the $1 Million Screenplay Contest, I think it was called. And it was a first-time writer. The director was Ali Leroy. He had done a lot of half-hour comedy, but never directed a feature that was heavy drama. And I was just surprised like how all that came together, because it seemed like there were so many elements that could go wrong. And it just really came together. It did.
That really surprised you on that project.
Yeah. And it was something that I took, okay, I'm due on this date and let me back it up to here. And oh yes, I have like 8 weeks. You take on projects like that. You love the script. You feel connected to it, but I have such a limited time. I don't know if this is going to work. And if anything goes wrong, we will not be able to finish this movie. I did have to have another person come do some notes, but it's pretty much stayed the way that we worked together that it was when my water broke. Yeah. And you're surprised by how things turn out when it seems like this is not going to work.
I can see on your face you were proud of it too, that you got it done before, you didn't let anyone down, and you did all the hard work that took. So being a hard worker and being aware of what you can do is so important in this business.
It is. You're always pushing yourself.
Now, what is ACE? I saw that in your bio.
ACE is American Cinema Editors, and it's the honorary organization for editors. So you don't have to be union, because there are a lot of documentary editors and they're not always union, but it is honorary. So you interview and they decide if your credits are worthy of being brought into the organization. I knew about ACE because it's the 3 letters behind the person's name on the credits. And so I was like, oh, well, what is that? I don't know. I thought you did good work. And then you sat on your couch and you waited for somebody to call you and say, hey, you've been invited to ACE. Learned that's not the case. They had a ACE diversity mentorship. And I was an assistant editor at the time out here in LA and got invited. And it was started by really great editors, Troy Takaki, Lillian Benson, and Mark Yoshikawa, because they recognized most of the ACE community was white male. They were like, what do we do about this? And the only way to do that is to invite people in, invite them to the events, get them acclimated to what ACE does, and then basically make a pipeline for them to be invited to join ACE. I was in that program 2 years, and then I became a junior mentor. You have to have a certain number of months working as an editor, and then got my months and applied and got in, and now I'm a mentor in the programs. ACE does so many events throughout the year for editors, and the Guild does it too, but ACE is very specific to awards screenings and social events. The point is to make sure that editing is recognized as a huge part of what filmmakers do, to receive recognition and people learn what editing is. And they don't just say, oh, it's just cut the bad stuff out, because that's not what we do. ACE is great.
I always realize editors are so important. But back in our beginning of our conversation, and you said that they have to go back because the actor wasn't coming off well enough. You had to go back and look at takes that change that perception for that actor. Now, that is big for any movie, for the actor, for the film project, for the producers. You paid a lot of money. You got to make this right. I know you said when you first got here, you didn't like LA. What did you think about Los Angeles before you got here? And then what was the reality? And I think you touched on it, but I want to see what made you not like it or perception of it.
I was never going to move to LA, pack up my things with $15 in my bank account and just go and see what happens. I was always like, I need something. So going to school was the something for me. I don't even know that I had a perception of LA. I had grown up in Georgia, college in DC. I wanted wanted to go to New York because I also applied to NYU. I think I got waitlisted at NYU and then got in AFI. And AFI had a very specific editing program. For me, I didn't even think about LA because I just never thought I would be in LA. But my perception, I don't even know how it is different.
It sounds like you just didn't even think much about it because you just figured you're going to be on the East Coast.
Think much about it and think about growing up in Georgia, going to Howard. When I got to Howard, it's a historically Black college. And I realized how many different types of Black people there were. I was totally different from one of my best friends that grew up in New York, just totally different people, and totally different from my friend that had grown up in LA, and totally different from people that come from the continent, Nigeria, Ghana, and Caribbean. And so I think that my perception of any area changed from going to Howard. Is that there are just so many different types of people wherever you go. Not that there weren't different types of people in Augusta, Georgia, but it didn't vary that much. And I think that for young people, getting out of your circle and realizing how many different people there are and how different people think and how you have a roommate that is totally different from you and a relationship that you get in where your partner is totally different from you and just how to make that work. That was what my eye-opening thing was. People are varied and different is great. And
you make a really good point. It's a culture thing.
Oh,
I think a lot of people like to put you in that little group, but culturally, every state is culturally different.
Every state is different.
If you raise Atlanta versus Maine, Arizona, Texas. And that's a good point. And I wish more people thought that way and was more broader and open-minded.
And at different stages, we are not the same people that we were when we were 18 than we are when we're 40. When do you come in contact with that person? That's just life lessons.
Well, it goes back to what you were saying, to get along with the directors and get along with people that you work. The more you understand different cultures, you don't take things personally. You're like, oh, this is how they probably move. Maybe I could mirror them.
Yeah.
Moving that way.
Yeah.
It can make a difference. You just can't be so cemented in your way of thinking. Sometimes you have to adjust your movement in order to be brought to the tables. But we have other issues.
Having the spirit of learning. I have a really good friend who married an Indian man. I never really wanted to go to India for the wedding. And India was never on my radar to visit. And then as I'm learning about what's in India, like planning the trip, bought the flights, and we're going to different places around the wedding. And I'm like, oh my God, that's there? The Taj Mahal? Oh my, all these temples and stuff. A spirit of not saying, that's not for me. It's a spirit of learning. You never know. It might be the kids and asking them to try things that you want them to taste. And my daughter is like, no, I don't like that. And I'm like, how do you know you don't like it? How do you know you don't like it this time? Because this time it might taste different from the last time. You just have to try it. Just try it. They go to a school that I absolutely love that is very big on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And one of their tenets is try it on. So the kids learn all this in school, and we do these things called courageous conversations where the parents are learning these same principles because we didn't grow up learning like this at all. A is A and B is B and this is right and this is wrong. So the tenants, they are learning and we as parents are learning. I'm taking that into the cutting room and I'm taking that into board meetings because it is all really good for learning how to talk to people. And that's all we're trying to do. We're learning how to listen to people and learning how to talk to people. And that's anywhere you go. If you don't have those skills, you will not go very far. Learning how to talk to anybody from any stage, because there are lots of people who will talk down to this person and then butter up this person up here. And that gets back around. It comes full circle. It's not going to work for your extended part of your life. You won't be happy.
So true. I remember years being in the business. I learned very young in the banking world. I treat everyone the same. I've been up to interviews and the secretary would be there and I'm just chatting with her. She talked to the boss. I like her. Bring her in. You don't know the power of people, but that wasn't the reason why. I just treat everyone the same.
Exactly.
And then if you don't get along, you just, okay, the vibe isn't working. That's okay. Don't take it personally. I love that you're into mentoring because I am too. And I think that's beautiful. Talking about mentoring, do you have any resources or tips?
Yeah. For editing, there are tons of Avid workshops, and not just how to use Avid. Avid is used on most professional shows. Some people use Premiere. That is also the Adobe suite. And I've cut many projects on Premiere, but for the most part, Avid is what editors use. I talk to students in colleges, and for some reason, these colleges are telling their students to learn Premiere, and that is not the case. You will not be ready for a professional career. So get your hands on Avid. Avid has free software. They have free versions. Go to avid.com, poke around. I had a job after college, but when I very first touched an Avid was an internship at the Democratic Technology Committee, and they had an Avid sitting around. They literally like, oh yeah, you sure you can go sit at it. That was when it wasn't accessible. These were like $10,000 machines. So I had the user's manual and I opened it up, cracked it open. I was like, how do you use this? I figured out how to use it. But now there are so many resources. Lynda.com will teach you how to use Avid.
And that's Lynda.com?
Lynda, it's LYNDA.com. They have it at public libraries. Like I think you can sign up through your public library for Lynda.com and then it's free. Avid has free versions. You can open it up and poke around, because to me, waiting for somebody to teach you something, you're going to be waiting around forever. And then you only get the knowledge that they have. You don't get that spirit of figure it out. And that is so important in any industry, especially filmmaking, is figure it out, because you're always going to run into something that you don't know how to do. Don't wait for somebody to teach you something. Google is a great resource. You can Google interviews with editors, go see Deadpool and look up those editors. Look, there's several interviews on the internet with them. And that gets so easy. And in the internet, I didn't have this when I was coming up. Like
the YouTube channels.
We didn't have YouTube channels. There were no interviews with editors. I'm sure they did them, but they were in an archive somewhere and they were shown at the Ace Eddie Awards or something, that they just weren't on the internet where you could just pull it up. As far as mentorship, there are several programs. The mentorship at Ace is for people who have been working already, but they do an internship that is for straight out of college. Academy Gold has a program for mentorship. If you are a high schooler, Black Girl Film School is a great one. I have a friend that is a Hue Collective, does a great editing boot camp for high schoolers. I think you have to be 13 years old. There's tons of these things. Just Google editing class for young people and you will find it. Even if it's online, even if you're doing this editing program online, you will meet the people that are teaching the class. The people that are teaching the class might be connected to someone that is looking for a person. As long as you show up, do your best work, have a passion, have a good spirit about things, people notice and they will help you. They will want to help you, because personally, I want to see more people that look like me come into this industry and do a good job, so that when people call me and they say, we are looking for an assistant editor, we know you know people. I know. I'm like, oh, okay, you want a Black woman. I already know that. You want a Black woman. You don't say it, but I'm always going to recommend a Black woman. I would love to have more people that I can recommend that are trained, that are experienced, that have a good spirit, that are, even if I haven't worked with them, I will check up on them to see if the people that work with them like them and said they did a good job. I encourage everyone who thinks they might want to do this to just dive in and see if that's what you want to do.
Thank you so much. That is a wealth of knowledge. Mm-hmm. What are you doing now? You're working on a project now. Can you talk about it?
Yes, I am working on a show for Ryan Murphy. It's called Grotesquerie and it airs in September coming up. It's a horror. And this is my first time doing horror.
Congratulations on this project.
Thank
and
you.
I'm going to watch it because I want to see your work.
Grotesquerie.
Shannon, I am so thankful that you came. Thank you again for coming. It was so inspiring, your journey, your story.
Thank you.
And the courage that it took for you to come all the way from New York to LA and do your thing and successful. I really love that story.
Thank you for having me. This was fun. I love it.
I know. We always have fun here.
I could talk. So
yeah, we both can talk. Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
That's when we met. I'm like, yeah, we're gonna be talking a lot.
Yeah, we're in the industry, so we have no problems with marketing. Oh, are you on social media?
I am. I'm on Instagram, Shannon Baker Davis, just my name written out.
So you're on Instagram, Twitter, and are you on Facebook?
I am on Facebook. I don't check Facebook very often.
I'm mostly on Instagram, and I'm learning to go on Twitter now. I'm doing more Twitter, but we do have up-and-comers on all those platforms. So make sure that you are listening to us on Spotify, Apple, Amazon. Thank you so much for coming in and tuning into Up-and-Comers of Hollywood with Shannon Baker Davis, an award-winning editor. You can watch us on YouTube, and I hope it brings you joy. With that, be kind and stay true to yourself. Thank you so much.
As we wrap up, we encourage you to take action. Support these up-and-comers as they continue to make their mark in Hollywood. Whether it's following their work, sharing their stories, or spreading the word, your support can make a real difference. And if you're looking to pursue a career in the entertainment industry, remember, perseverance, passion, keep pushing forward, and never give up. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to sharing more inspiring stories. That's all for today's episode of Up-and-Comers Hollywood. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on our latest content. Leave a comment sharing your thoughts and any success stories you'd like us to feature. Until next time, chasing your dreams. See you soon.